Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this series reflecting on the African and the Kenyan experience in particular with a view of building intergenerational solidarity. My name is Darius Okola, and today I'm honored to be hosted by a senior counsel, Mr. Pheroze Nowrojee. Karibu sana.
Asante Darius, thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. And so we're joining you today to have a conversation at a very unique point in the history of the country, where we had a very significant political moment. We've watched the younger people, we call them the Gen Zs, make significant questions and raise their voice around a critical number of issues. This is not the first time in the history of the country where we've had these kinds of dynamics. From your vantage point and the advantage of history, what do you make of this moment in the history of the country?
It's a key moment. It's a key moment, and the reason it is a key moment is that the gains that we have made and had made in two ways. One is in the constitutional aspects, that we have a gain of a very extremely good constitution, trying to contain the abuse and oppression that comes with power. And secondly, we changed the ethos of a democratic Kenya. And those gains, very hard won at a cost similar to what the Gen Zs are paying now, those came into danger. And at that moment, when the current oppression began to think that they had consolidated repression, oppression, self-enrichment, the Gen Zs broke through and asserted a new, not a new Kenya, but a fresh Kenya with these ideals that had been won. So it is a key moment.
And just dwelling a bit on that, one of the salient moments and question in this revolution is the economic question. Again, just with the advantage of history of these kinds of dynamics. How have you seen the interplay between these kinds of agitation and the kind of economic and material conditions and the material elements that come out of it?
We should not lose sight of that conjunction. To give you a historical example, we are familiar, as we all should be familiar, with the history of resistance, the history of the pushback against oppression in South Africa, in another generation in India, in Algeria. But one of the important areas which we should look at always is the civil rights movement in the US South and the pushback there. And all of us remember the Great March on Washington in August 1963. That is where Martin Luther King gave the I Have a Dream speech. But that was not the intended focus. The intended focus was civil rights and jobs. And you will see that in the photographs which show the mall. It is the heart of the message that they then took to the then President Kennedy and said, this is not simply about civil rights. It is about the impoverishment. It is about the disabling of our youth. This is about the destruction of creativity, the destruction of dreams. And therefore, we emphasize that to shut down voting rights is to shut down the ability to gain economic power and economic self-sufficiency. So it is very, very important that the Gen Zs, when they are speaking, will always combine the rejection of abductions, the rejection of killings, but with the reminder the jobs are absent. Where are the jobs? Where are the economic promises of the period from June? Where are the economic promises from the 2022 election? So that is a key coming together, and I think that should be passed on.
In your view, what are some of the opportunities and spaces for intergenerational solidarity and intergenerational equity within this kind of a contestation?
Sure. May I break it down and put it, before there is intergenerational handover, I think one of the most important things for the Gen Zs to do is to understand anybody who seeks change, national change, anybody who seeks to push back repression, anybody who seeks to enforce constitutionality, must first understand where is power coming from in our society. How is it operated? What are the conduits of power? What sort of power is being exerted? Then you come to the question of who is operating it. Because we come through a publicity and celebrity atmosphere, we tend to say, who is operating power?
That's right.
And that's a wrong question, because the people really operating power may not be the people who are the people well known. So what the Gen Zs have to do is to understand power. And you begin to understand power when you are the victim of that repression. And so the Gen Zs come at it with a base. So when we are speaking of power, we say, is it operated this way or that way? What way is it being operated? And so we should understand that the question then is, how is it being operated? Let me give you some examples on this. Under our Constitution, power should be operated through the National Assembly and the Senate. So we begin to expect that the National Assembly, which is there in order to reflect the demands of the electorate, should get this and that result. But within a very short time of the election, August 2022, we begin to see that the National Assembly does not reflect the demands of the electorate, but is reflecting the demands of another source, which is an individual who is the president. And so you begin to see that there is we should be looking at what that president is thinking and saying, rather than looking at Parliament. We can see the gap, we can see the error, we can see the non-constitutionality, but we still have to understand what is. So when you look at that, when you try and answer, you have to ask, what is the goal? What is the ideal? What are the aims and objects of this one president? And we have got to analyze that and understand what is what. Now, the Constitution under Article 10 says that our national aims are this, patriotism, national interest, education, this. And what are the aims of this one individual? And then we begin to understand. The first thing that we see in such repressive power is the fear of losing the seat of the presidency. That is why we see him reacting. What he is afraid of is not what the Gen Zs are saying in the beginning. What he is thinking is, I can be removed from this post. And so he reacts in a particular way. So Ruto must go was not the initial demand. The initial demand is, we are overtaxed. We have no economic opportunity. No one is listening to us. We said, don't bring the housing, affordable housing. It's making us unaffordable for everything else. Where is the petrol? Where's the subsidy? What's happened to the IMF? Etc. So you begin to understand that power is not listening. Power is assessing the threat to itself. So we must understand. Then we say, how is it that Parliament is already with this president, and not only this president, others? So we begin to say, how is he doing it? Is he threatening them? Is he shooting them? Is he killing them? Is he buying them? Is he inducing them, etc.? So it is extremely important. What happened to the civil service? The civil service is supposed to be carrying out things according to the law. But these civil servants are doing what the president tells them. Don't do this or do this. Break up that. Don't allow the police. Don't allow assembly. But what about Article 37? So you begin to see, how does he control the police? How does he control the civil service? And why is it, now we begin to ask, how is it that he can control the civil service? They are public officers, state officers, they are under many laws, they cannot obey any legal order, etc. So we begin to see that. Take a look at when the president moves and goes to open something in upcountry. And you will see there, the governor is not present, a senator is rarely present, sometimes the MPs are present, MCAs, but who is there? Not even the police are visible. What is visible is the county commissioner and their uniformed people with their hats. Why? Because that is the direct route of power from State House down onto the ground. But you will ask, but the Constitution says there is a devolution. That is how devolution is bypassed. So we begin to, when we ask these questions, this generation is to start from not asking another generation, what is the situation? You begin to analyze and get that situation, especially when you're being shot at, water cannons, tear gas, etc. So that's the starting point. Secondly, even more than intergenerational, Darius, interinstitutional. How can this extraordinary institution, which is the Gen Zs, undefined, leaderless, and then go back to the civil rights movement, the students' coordinating committee in Mississippi. The first thing that Bull O'Connor, the policeman, asked when they came to the Selma Bridge, who is your leader? Because they would shoot him first and then everyone will disperse according to these people. So leaderless is not only a strength but a historical antecedent. So the Gen Zs have used that brilliantly, and it has completely befuddled the leadership for a while. Therefore, the next thing is, how do you institutionalize that strength? The Gen Zs are afraid that if they seek an association which is interinstitutional or intergenerational, then their modus operandi will be diluted or infiltrated or misled. Yes, guard against that, and yet begin to find ways. Mm-hmm. There are many approaches. One thing, the Gen Zs did right. You cannot negotiate with somebody who is not going to change. And they did brilliantly by saying, we are not talking to Ruto. But do not think, and the Gen Z should not think, that the police are a monolith. The police are divided. The army is divided. The civil service is divided. That's why Gen Zs get tips. Don't go there, go there. That's why the police are saying, some of them, this is not what we joined. The civil service is now realizing that they are not benefiting. Even the promise that you will do better, here is something, yes, it doesn't happen. The judiciary is standing, the lawyers are standing, the Gen Zs are standing. So how do we begin to make these groups even stronger, mm-hmm. and not lose out at the edges? Talk to the diaspora, talk to the persons who went through the second liberation but did not gain. And there are thousands of them. Mm-hmm. Thousands. They are saying, they can say, we did this. And now the Gen Zs must watch out for the biggest institutional threat, which is the political party of Ruto and the political party of Raila coming together. So now we begin to understand where power is moving and what we should guard against. So if we come to that point, Darius, yes, then our next thing will be, because all this takes time to come, what is the immediate point that we are looking at? And the immediate point that we are looking at with these political parties coming together, we don't know as yet what the political parties of the splintering central province is coming. We don't know where Wiper will go, or where Old Nark will go. Martha has brought people together. But that is not yet an institution. So, what is the next thing? When you look at all this, what should the Gen Zs be doing? What's the action point when you understand power and the current immediate power point? It is the by-elections that are coming up. There is a by-election coming up now in Siaya. And it represents the opportunity for Ruto and Raila to say that's how we will do it in 2027. You see, you said ODM is finished. Here it is. Therefore, we are not there to talk. While we are talking, Ruto went to Mandera and said, all IDs without verification. All right? Yeah. It's not for us to sit down and say, oh my God, that man, is there no limit to the bottom? No, there isn't. And our task is, therefore, what, with our understanding of power, is the next step. And the next step is to make sure that our unity is applied in that one by-election. That one by-election is important. Therefore, that is what we should now be tweeting, or whatever messages we are sending. So, interinstitutional, rather. And then the intergenerational thing comes, either through people we trust, and there are many, but the Gen Zs have to know whom they want to trust and how to then get the baton handed over. Secondly, you don't need to meet people. The trouble is that we have not written our history, and that is why your book is very important to me. We are now saying, this is what we are thinking. This is to be tested. And where are the books of the second liberation? Right. So let's find them. Let's find the articles. Let's find the people who speak. Now there are many podcasts. There are many reflections even on the first liberation. Mau Mau soldiers speaking up. So this is the way we begin to build, with a clear ideal, a clear program of action, and good organization. And always never underestimate. We have very hard work, 24/7, 25/8 before us.
True. It's interesting, and senior counsel is listening to you speak on one, intergenerational solidarity, but then also across institutions, and especially not just the conventional institutions, but also these new emerging elements of and forms of organization that in and of themselves constitute essentially institution. And one of the key institutions that we've had in the country, and which you have been a part of bringing it to fruition, was the Constitution. And it's been strong, it's been formidable. We've had it since 2010, after many years of building up towards that with very different interest parties and a lot of play in between, civic and political play. What we are looking at right now is serious machinations against this constitutional document. And given that it encapsulates everything that is Kenyan and all our ideas of dreams and our idea of what Kenya should be, it's not the first time we've had an affront at the Constitution, including the old one, Constitution. What are some of those lessons you need to begin to pick in the ways of defending it? Of course, one is through the judiciary, which has been interesting challenges happening over there, and I hope you touch on that. But generally, what should be the approach of a lot of the people in the civic public right now towards these machinations against the Constitution?
The Constitution is to be used. And the Gen Zs did it perfectly in June. When they started out, they said, we are here constitutionally. We come under its terms, and its terms says, no armed, you must be peaceful. And they said, here we have come peacefully unarmed. And it did two things. The reaction puzzled them. What should their own reaction be? But the second thing happened, which we must hold on to it. The rest of the country said, yes. And the Gen Zs were able to demonstrate that 80% of the country was behind them. That they were speaking for 80% of the thing. So the Constitution did, again, firstly, it enabled them. Secondly, it defended them. It enabled them to do things which these people couldn't immediately control. That is an opportunity that they exercised with surprise, formidable force, and totally articulate expression. We should not lose the country's backing for that. The decision then went into Ruto's hand, and it was, we'll shoot. First we'll use rubber bullets, and first we'll use rungus, then we will throw water at them, then we'll hear tear gas. Now, one of the things on the tear gas, which we took a look at many years ago, was that tear gas has also been used as poison. And so whenever things like that turn up, pick up some of these and they will be analyzed for you outside. So these are small lessons of the past which you can pick up, but always history, reading history. It's a non-stop lesson. And history is the early warning system. It's saying we can predict that after a while the rubber bullets will be with live bullets. Then will come the question. Here is the head of the whole organization saying, the police didn't shoot. Some criminal came and grabbed a gun from the policeman and he shot at people. So, we don't laugh it off, we use it and say, this is their answer, this is the thing that we are doing. So, to go back to the Constitution then is also your immediate response. People are being picked up, hammered, kept in, and fortunately the lawyers were there. They were there at the police station through the night, in the morning in the courts, getting bail, getting this. Use that Constitution and use the legal profession. Because the Ruto cannot say, you lawyers don't go to the police station. The minute he does that, his whole facade that I'm the great East African and I'm entitled to be held to be taken to state dinners and fettered, all disappears. Legitimacy goes. So keep the lawyers close to you. Now begin using the doctors. The doctors have to speak up to say there are more deaths. They have to say the postmortems are showing something different from the official things. So immediate things. Another thing that has to be done immediately is memorials. 67, and that's only a figure. What are we doing? How many times are we reminding people of the families? Put up graffiti on the walls. It was put up recently. By the afternoon, the police had been sent in to clean up, etc. It cost 16,000 shillings to paint that. So keep it ready that when the police have done that, another wall goes up the next night. The same people can't. We branch out. You are the legal team. You are the newspaper team. You are the social media team. You are the graffiti team. See that it's done. So then it is up to the other generations to make sure that silence doesn't come from them. And that's what we are trying to do. There are people who are agreed that they will be part of national elders like that. And so that has to be done. The final thing about the Constitution is to show that Section 37, look at the Article 37. After a while, when the shootings and all became an international embarrassment, the American ambassador, at last she woke up and said to Ruto, stop this killing. We can't help you on that. So, no killing on the coming things. So the next time when the Mandamana was on, he encircled Nairobi and stopped them from getting. But when you look at Article 37 is saying every person has the right to, I'm jumping a little, to demonstrate, to picket, and to present a petition, right? But before it says that, it says every person has the right to assemble. So what Ruto was doing was stopping killing in the shooting by saying, but I don't allow you to assemble. So if you promise not to assemble, I promise not to kill. If you, the judges, don't halt my programs, I won't abuse you. So he is breaking the Constitution, and when he is challenged, he says, okay, I won't do that, but I'll do it by breaking another part of the Constitution. Now, we've got to get the gap showing. Each time there is a statement, there should also be a statement from the legal teams, from the justice centers, social justice centers, saying, look at Article 37. We have a right to assemble. And you can't make it conditional upon us not demonstrating like that. Mm-hmm. So the Constitution constantly, he can't get rid of it, and he cannot rule with it. He rules against it. Now those machinations are dangerous, but we have to show the gap all the time. So, a thing that is an experience of the second liberation is, throughout that period, we held up the alternative to the people. So the Constitution was that alternative to start with. But when the Constitution was not doing enough, we said new Constitution. So you can change directions, aims, but what's your constant aim? Number two, show the gap. That gap. The Gen Zs have shown that 80% of the country approved what they were doing. When we started out in the second liberation, we said, first the lawyers said, look, he's taking away the Attorney General's tenure, the Auditor General's tenure, judges' tenure, public officers' tenure, like that. I mean, he's doing bad things. People said, you guys, you all talk too much. Then we said he's detaining people. He's bringing people in for criminal charges. He's doing bad things. Then people couldn't say that he is not doing them. They said, he's a good man. We see Moy in church every Sunday. He's a good man, we can see. It took us a decade and more to change the moral mass from a perception of social respect, of people needing to see these things, and till they themselves did wrong. For example, they put in the Mololongo elections. Then people began to say, this is a joke. What's happened to our normal blah, blah, blah. So always use the Constitution. It is a major part. It's a major part of progressive movement, because the Constitution is part of Ruto. He can't deny. And so we are using his own tools against him. And when 200,000 people on one day using his tools against him, he hasn't an answer. So the machinations are dangerous because he has got Raila's National Assembly people with him. And so we've got to keep watching that. That is why I say that by-election, start with the worst possible scenario. The worst possible scenario is that the ODM party will pull in ethnicity, money, family, anything to win that seat. So what are we to do? Whatever we can. It's now a short time. But focus. And the Constitution always as a defense.
Yeah, thank you for that, especially on the mention of history as an early warning system. And getting into that a bit of history, the senior counsel, fine gentlemen in a long line of what you do and who have been dear to you, gentleman Kapila, Bram Fisher, looking at Preet. And I mean, just in terms of the work they've done, how much of that has inspired what you do and how that speaks into the kind of intergenerational solidarity that we were talking about? I mean, what are some of those interesting aspects about how they went about dealing with activism, as also public litigation, and trying to basically foresee and oversee a better country and public life?
Yeah. It affected me a lot. It was a major part of what I thought my work would be, that there must be not only the redress to an individual person for the individual injustice done to him or her or a group, farmers, people who are being shut out, people who are being discriminated, whatever it is, the big group or an individual. But when repression reaches the point where that injustice is affecting a major part of society, then there were, in our profession, I saw people like Pritt. Pritt was the lawyer who was defending at Kapenguria. When Jomo Kenyatta and all were arrested, the charge was that they are managing Mau Mau and these guys are just a bunch of criminals, they're not political leaders, etc. And Pritt was able to show, Pritt was able to use that trial to bring the voice of their leadership into the proceedings. He did it by two things: by the questions he asked, by ridiculing what these people were bringing as evidence, good cross-examination to show they were lying, but also putting his client's case to those people. Now, he was knowledgeable with power. He understood. He understood repression. He understood injustice and how it is done. So he began to bring it out of the courtroom and into the international press. People came for Kenyatta's name, but if Pritt had not been there, it would have fizzled out. But what Pritt showed was, it was not Kenyatta on trial, it was Kenya's political freedom that was on trial. Now that is the transfer. Mm-hmm. So fortunately, we have been able to draw on Pritt. I was many years with Kapila, his junior, and saw Kapila doing it. Occasionally we would talk about what Pritt was doing and how he was doing it. And I learned. Mm-hmm. And we began applying it not only here, but in Zanzibar, in Tanganyika, etc. But best of all, you saw it when Martha Karua, senior counsel, did it 1 month ago in the court-martial in Kampala. Exactly. What did she do? They said he is holding a gun and he came in illegally. And she said, that? No. What is on trial is, can a military court ever try a civilian? What is on trial is, how come it is the political opponent of the president, who is also the commander-chief, whose son is also the head of the military, whose portrait is on the wall with that court-martial, trying this and pretending that they are doing impartial justice, coming out of the courtroom and speaking to the press and saying, not only all that, but they're not even allowing me to defend. Mm-hmm. And that's what Pritt said to the international press. She said, I am qualified, and yet they don't allow others. And we need many people because it's a very serious court. We need more people to come in, but they're barring them from coming. Here is my colleague from Angola. It was all over the press. What happened? What did Brit do? He said, here is Chief Davies from Nigeria. Here is Dudley Thompson from Trinidad, coming from Moshi. Here is Peter Evans from Ireland. Mm-hmm. Here is Chimanlal from India. This is how important this case is, not what you're trying to make it. This is not a settler SOP or anything. So these are the ways in which these people, Bram Fisher was able to do, and here is one more thing that he was trying to do. Bram Fisher was saying, this is not about, first of all, there was no intention to harm people through the military, ANC military. Secondly, that this is not about ANC. This is about South Africa's freedom, like that. But he had something else in mind. He said to the Boers, he was the son and the grandson of a prime minister of the Boer republics. And the family was really highly regarded. He says, this is about the Boer community understanding where the new South Africa is going. That is what they were able to transmit. And so these people were people with an understanding of how their profession is not only fair to an individual, but is bringing social equity and social change. True, he was a lawyer. He didn't do anything else. He didn't join politics first. Mandela didn't join politics first. Mandela said, it is my profession which led me to oppose apartheid, because he said, my honorable profession, and it is an honorable profession, doesn't allow me to do dishonorable things. That's how strong that profession impacts. And from that, he went into politics, and then on, etc. So there was Kapila there, and in the second liberation, you saw a galaxy of lawyers. We were very fortunate. And we are still fortunate. Who is speaking up at the habeas corpus? Dr. Kaminwa, Martha Karula, Paul Muite. So that is still going on, and the profession is fortunate that it is able to serve so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And one of the elements that stands out is just the interconnectedness of it all. From South Africa to Zanzibar to Kenya to the UK, across the ocean.
Yes.
The sense of how much this shared reality and the need for to know what other people are doing in other different spaces, for the encouragement of it, for to be able to liaise with them, to be able to exchange notes and know who is where and what are they doing, and sort of what are the unique elements in what they are grappling with, but also what are the cross-cutting realities.
Yes.
And we're very, very appreciative of that. Thank you so much for your words of wisdom. Thank you for the encouragement. I know that many of the Gen Zs who are embodiment of this political moment would appreciate to know that what they're doing comes from a long history of are people who've been in similar spaces with similar stakes, but then they've been able to draw from the lessons in history and the strength from each other and the hope of a better country to be able to stand up through the respective mechanisms available to them. So thank you so much, and much, much appreciated.
That's exactly it. You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.